When Michael passed away, it didn't feel real at all. My older brother, the toughest man I had ever known, had whispered his final words in that cold hospital room just 3 months earlier. And now his lawyer was calling me with something that sounded strange and unreal. "A pen drive?" I asked, walking back and forth in the kitchen while Emily cooked nearby. "Yes," Mr. Radley said. Michael was very clear about it. "Watch it by yourself. Don't tell Emily." That last part stuck inside my chest like a sharp splinter. Emily, my wife of 5 years, the woman who stood beside me crying at Michael's funeral. Why would my brother say something like that? The envelope arrived later that same afternoon. It was small, padded, and had no return address. Emily handed it to me, raising an eyebrow slightly. "Secret admirer?" she joked with a small smile. "Just work stuff," I replied, lying without thinking much. That night, I waited until Emily fell asleep next to me. Her breathing became slow and steady as I quietly slipped out of bed, walked into my office, plugged in the drive, and double-clicked the only file inside. Michael's face appeared on the screen. He looked thinner than I remembered. The chemo had already started taking its toll on him. But his voice was still steady and clear. "Hey, James, if you're watching this, I'm gone. I'm sorry, but I need to tell you something before it's too late." He paused for a moment, then took a slow breath. "Emily is not who you think she is." I blinked in disbelief. "There are things you need to see." I didn't want to believe it either, but I found proof. I recorded everything. It's all here. The screen suddenly turned to static. Then a folder appeared. Videos, emails, logs. My hands turned cold. I clicked on the first video, and my entire world slowly started to fall apart. The screen flickered again before settling on a grainy recording of a restaurant booth. I recognized it immediately. La Traviata, the place Emily always said she didn't like. But there she was, Emily, smiling and laughing with Trevor. Trevor, Michael's former business partner, the man who disappeared right after Michael got diagnosed. Michael's voice played over the video. "I thought I was just being paranoid. But James, they're not only having an affair. They did something worse. They messed with my final deal, forged my signature on the equity contract, and moved $600,000 into a fake account under your name." "What?" I whispered to myself. "You've probably noticed strange bank alerts. That's why I followed everything. I left the documents in a safety deposit box. This USB has the key number." I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe properly. 100 small moments from the past year rushed back into my mind. Emily suddenly showing interest in my bank accounts, her accidentally deleting Michael's emails, the way she pushed me to sell my shares after Michael died. "Let go of the past," she had said. "It's just business." It wasn't. It was all planned. Michael's voice sounded weaker near the end of the recording. I tried to stop them, but I ran out of time. "So now I'm leaving it to you, James. Don't confront her yet. Wait, watch carefully, gather proof. When you finally act, make it count." The screen went black. I just sat there, frozen, the light from the monitor shining on my face. Emily knocked gently on the door. "Everything okay?" she asked in a soft voice. I turned and forced a smile. "Yeah, just thinking about Michael." Emily leaned against the doorframe, holding a hot mug of coffee, like we were still that perfect couple everyone saw. "Do you want me to make you something?" she asked kindly. I shook my head. "I'm fine. Just going through some of Michael's old emails, missing him a bit." She nodded slowly, her lips pressed together like she really cared. But her eyes were moving across the desk, my laptop, the flash drive. She was thinking, calculating, always thinking ahead. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Anger was building inside me, but I could hear Michael's voice again in my head. "Don't confront. Gather proof. Act only when there's no way back." So I started. First, I took the safety deposit key and went to get the documents. Michael had prepared everything carefully. account statements, recorded phone calls, notarized copies. He knew exactly what he was doing. Then I installed a keystroke tracker on our shared computer, the one Emily used to handle our finances. Within just 24 hours, I had access to her password. What I found next made my skin crawl. Emails between her and Trevor. Not just romantic messages. Detailed plans. He's almost ready to sell his shares. We're close. Move the money through that Wyoming LLC. He'll never trace it. Delete Michael's name from the files. Say we lost the originals. And then one message from 2 weeks ago. We've taken enough from him. It's time to file for divorce. We'll take the house. She hadn't just betrayed me. She had taken advantage of me. And now they were planning to wipe me out clean. But they had no idea I already understood the entire plan. They were setting up a theft, but I was preparing something much bigger. A complete breakdown of everything they built. The next morning, I kissed Emily on the forehead like everything was normal. She smiled. Maybe even a little too pleased with herself. She believed I was still under her control, like I hadn't figured anything out. What she didn't realize was that while she stood under the shower, I quietly forwarded every single one of her emails to a secure drive. I didn't stop there. Later that afternoon, I recorded her phone conversation with Trevor. She wasn't careful at all. She laughed, bragging about how easy it was to control me, like I was nothing more than a tool she could use whenever she wanted. That same night, I made my move. I picked up the phone and called Michael's lawyer. My voice stayed steady. File the freeze, I told him. Within less than 12 hours, everything changed. All the joint accounts were locked. Every pending transfer stopped immediately. Every document connected to the company that had my name on it was now under review for fraud. That included the forged documents they had used in their attempt to remove Michael's name completely. By noon, Emily stormed into my office, gripping her phone like it was burning her hand. "James, did you do something?" she demanded. "The bank called. My card isn't working." I looked up at her, calm and controlled. "Maybe you should ask Trevor," I said. She froze for a second, confused. At that moment, my phone buzzed. It was an email notification from the private investigator I had hired 2 weeks earlier. Emily and Trevor had just applied for a joint loan, and they had used my business credit profile to do it. I slowly turned my laptop toward her. The evidence was all there. Photos of them together, hotel check-ins, paperwork records, even a picture of them kissing outside my own office building. "I trusted you," I said quietly. "But you used a dead man's brother like it was nothing." I stood up from my chair. "You're leaving this house today." She let out a short laugh, trying to recover her confidence. "You can't do that," she said sharply. I stepped aside, and she saw them. 2 uniformed officers standing near the door, silent and ready. "Actually, I can," I replied. "Fraud, identity theft, abuse of wire transfers. Do you want me to continue?" Her face lost all its color. Emily screamed then, not out of fear but pure anger. "This is insane! James, how could you do this to me?" The officers didn't react. They had seen this kind of thing before. Anger pretending to be innocence. One officer calmly read the temporary protection order, while the other asked her to gather her belongings. "I'll sue you!" she shouted. "You're going to lose everything." I said nothing. I simply walked over to the mantel and picked up a framed picture of me and Michael from the day we opened our first office together. "I already lost everything the moment I let you into my life," I said quietly. That night, Trevor tried to call me. I watched the phone ring and let it go unanswered. Then everything began to collapse for them. The forensic audit that Michael's lawyer had prepared uncovered it all. Misused funds, fake vendors Emily had created to move money, and several hidden accounts connected directly to Trevor. By the next morning, legal notices were sent out to both of them. Civil lawsuits, criminal referrals, total exposure. Emily went completely silent. Trevor vanished like he never existed. But I wasn't finished yet. 2 weeks later, I stood in front of a room filled with reporters. Cameras pointed straight at me as I announced the relaunch of the Hamilton Brothers Foundation. This time, it had a new purpose. It was dedicated to helping whistleblowers, people trapped by lies, manipulation, or betrayal from their own families. I named it after Michael. At the end of the press conference, I said one simple line. Justice isn't only about the law. It's about courage. The same courage my brother had when he chose to tell the truth. That same night, my phone rang from a blocked number. I answered, and a familiar voice came through, rough and low. "You think you've won?" Trevor said. "But you have no idea what we started." My body went still. It was him, and his voice carried nothing but danger. I recognized that tone. It was the quiet moment before everything turns violent. Trevor wasn't just upset. He was trapped. And people like him, when they feel trapped, become unpredictable. I immediately forwarded the recording of the call to the police. But I didn't stop there. I hired private security and had advanced surveillance systems installed around my home and office. Michael's words echoed in my mind. Paranoia isn't always a weakness. Sometimes it's what keeps you alive. 3 nights later, at exactly 3:12 in the morning, my front door camera picked up movement. A shadow moved near the entrance. Someone tried to force the lock open. The moment motion was detected, bright floodlights switched on, lighting up the entire area. A voice came through the intercom. "You have 10 seconds to leave before the police are called." The figure ran immediately, but not before the camera captured a clear image. It was Trevor. Within hours, the police issued a restraining order. They also reopened an older case connected to him involving harassment at his workplace. It turned out Michael had been gathering evidence long before his illness. That was his real plan, his real revenge. He didn't just expose Emily. He slowly destroyed every person who had abused their power around him, step by step. At his memorial, I finally understood who Michael truly was. He knew he was dying, but instead of giving up, he used his final months to protect me, to make sure I could actually live, free from Emily, safe from Trevor, free from the control that kept me stuck for years. But it still wasn't over. 1 week later, a letter arrived at my door. It was delivered by hand, with no return address. Inside, there was only a single photograph. Trevor was standing next to someone I thought I had already lost forever. My heart nearly stopped. It was Michael. The picture showed him alive, or at least someone who looked exactly like him, stepping out of a black SUV beside Trevor. The timestamp showed it was taken just a week earlier. I rushed to my study and went through every document Michael had left behind. Nothing explained this. Nothing suggested that he had faked his death. Unless this was never about death at all. Maybe it was about protection. I took the photo to Detective Lively, the officer who had reopened Trevor's harassment case. The moment she saw it, her face turned pale. "This wasn't in the file," she said quietly. "James, your brother was working with the Federal Financial Crimes Task Force. He was deeply involved." "What are you saying?" I asked. She leaned closer and lowered her voice. "I'm saying your brother didn't just leave that video for closure. He left it to give himself time to disappear. And if Trevor has found him, then the entire case could be compromised." The room felt like it was spinning. My brother wasn't just someone who died from illness. He had become invisible, hiding in his own life to protect me, to seek justice, for reasons I was only beginning to understand. But now Trevor was back, and everything was at risk again. That night, when I returned home, another letter was waiting for me. This one was handwritten. Inside were only 8 words. "Meet me where the tree split midnight." There was no name, no signature, but I knew exactly who it was from. Michael. And he was pulling me back into everything. I went to the old oak tree, the one that had split into 2 parts during the storm back in '96. It was almost midnight. The air was cold, and the clearing was completely silent. Then I heard footsteps. A figure stepped out from the darkness. It was him. Not a ghost. Not a memory. Real. Older, thinner, but alive. "Before you say anything," he said, "I need to show you something." He handed me a flash drive. "This is everything," he explained. Trevor's hidden accounts, his connections to the judge, the bribes, the deals that were kept secret. I needed someone I trust to make it public if I didn't make it. My hands were shaking. "Why me?" I asked. "Because you still believe in truth, James," he said. "And because you were always the only one who never asked me to be someone else." We talked for hours, like we were brothers again. Michael explained everything. He had faked his death with help from federal agents so he could go undercover. But when Trevor started to suspect something, the entire operation fell apart. Michael had to disappear again before they could silence him. "I'm going back into hiding," he told me, as the sky slowly began to brighten. "But now the decision is yours." I took the flash drive, and I used it. In the weeks that followed, everything exploded. Trevor was arrested. The judge resigned. My family finally saw Michael for who he really was. Not someone to pity, but the bravest man I had ever known. And on Christmas morning, another envelope arrived at my door. Inside was a single photograph. It was me and Michael when we were 12 years old, standing in the sunlight, smiling without any worries. There was no note inside. But there didn't need to be. Some things don't need words to be understood.